Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the February 2nd meeting of the Issaquah Development Commission. It is 7:03. Welcome, and due to virtual format of tonight's meeting, I'd like to start by just providing a few guidelines to help us navigate our way through this meeting. We have participants attending by computer and others who may be attending by phone. So for all meeting attendees, please speak clearly and pause frequently. State your name each time before speaking. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. And if you are having technical difficulties, you can try joining using a different device like a smartphone or a tablet. And then there's always the option to call in on the phone line that you can find in the meeting information. So overview for tonight's meeting, we have one agenda item. It's a public hearing for the Brown Bear Car Wash. And this is a quasi-judicial matter, so the Development Commission is the decision maker for this permit application. We need to go through roll call. So Lucy, if you would please call roll.
Commissioner Brennan, please unmute and say here. Commissioner Brennan.
I am here.
Commissioner Sanford.
Here.
Commissioner Soa.
Here.
Commissioner Dillon.
Here.
Commissioner Shore is excused this evening. Commissioner Price.
Here.
Commissioner Schulte is excused this evening. Commissioner Ikeda.
Here.
Commissioner Morgan.
Here.
Thank you, Lucy. And just note that we have both alternate commissioners, Morgan and Ikeda, who are serving as regular commission members this evening due to the absence of two of our regular members. So we have a number of meeting minutes to approve. And that's because through an audit, the administrative staff identified that there were several sets of minutes from 2020 that had not been approved by the commission. The February 5th, February 10th, and February 12th. So a number of the current commissioners weren't on the commission back then when these meetings took place, but we can approve the minutes this evening, or if commissioners are uncomfortable doing so, we could post the minutes as unapproved. So we need to decide how we want to proceed with those meeting minutes from the 2020 meetings held by the commission. If you have questions or comments, just use the chat to post the question or comment, and then we can kind of handle it that way. If commission members are comfortable proceeding with approving those meeting minutes, we can go ahead and do that. Any questions or comments? I am not seeing any questions or comments. So I'm going to assume people are comfortable proceeding with.
There are actually several chats.
Oh, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't see those.
That's all right. Commissioner Morgan had a comment. I note that someone asked about abstaining. I just want to let you know that an abstention is the same as a vote for yes. Those are the comments so far.
Okay, Commissioner Morgan.
I would suggest, since I believe we have somebody in attendance tonight at each of the meetings that was there, so I would suggest we can approve the minutes with any potential changes possibly.
Anybody object with proceeding? It'd also be helpful on the two when you're doing the chat if you list all panelists, so then we can all see who's weighing in to comment or question. So hearing none, we will proceed ahead. So first of all, are there any corrections to the February 5th, 2020 meeting minutes? Hearing none or seeing none, the meeting minutes from February 5th, 2020 are approved. Are there any corrections for the February 10th, 2020 meeting minutes? Again, seeing none, the February 10th, 2020 meeting minutes are approved. Are there questions or corrections for the February 12th, 2020 meeting minutes? Again, seeing none, the February 12th, 2020 meeting minutes are approved. We also have a couple of more recent meeting minutes from latter part of 2021 and early 2022. So in your packet were the meeting minutes for October 28th, 2021. Are there any corrections to the October 28th meeting minutes? I'm seeing none, so the meeting minutes from October 28th are approved by consensus. Similarly, are there any meeting minutes or any corrections to the January 20, 2022 meeting minutes? Also included in the packet. Okay, seeing none, the meeting minutes from January 20th, 2022 are also approved. All right, thanks. We tracked through those pretty quickly. So want to open the meeting for any members of the community that would like to comment on topics that are not before the commission at tonight's public hearing. If you have comments related to the public hearing, we'll ask you to hold those until we do have comment period during the public hearing process. But if you are on the phone and not on a computer and would like to make a comment on something that's not on the agenda, please press *3 on your phone, or if you're on a computer, you can raise your hand, your virtual hand. Lucy, do you see anybody wanting to comment outside of the public hearing?
Not yet. I don't believe anyone's commenting.
Okay, then we will move along. So we have one agenda item tonight. So the purpose of tonight's public hearing is for the commission to review and make a decision, if we are ready, on the site development permit SDP 19-00024 for the Brown Bear Car Wash. And the proposal contains 2,125 square feet of car wash and an auto sentry canopy on a 0.42 acre site near the intersection of Gilman Boulevard and Front Street. So for everybody on the commission and for those that are listening in, the order of the public hearing will be first, Lucy will go through the appearance of fairness disclosures, which we'll get to in just a minute. We'll open the public hearing. Then there would be the typical staff presentation. The applicant also has an opportunity following the staff presentation to make a presentation. We would accept public comment, and there is an opportunity for rebuttal by the applicant and/or staff if there are any comments to rebuttal. And then we would close the public hearing, giving the commissioners an opportunity to deliberate. And if we are comfortable, the final action would be to act on the application this evening. So with that, we will move to the appearance of public fairness disclosures. So Lucy, if you'd go ahead and proceed with the questioning for commissioners regarding the appearance of public fairness disclosures.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. For you longtime commission members, I just want to let you know that these are revised somewhat from what you've seen before. Because tonight's public hearing is a quasi-judicial matter, we're going to go through this disclosure proceedings because we are required to have proceedings that are fair in both fact and appearance, which is similar to a courtroom setting. Ex parte contacts are prohibited. Those are communications that take place outside of the hearing between a decision maker and an opponent or proponent of the matter at hand. If such communications have occurred, record of the substance of the communication must be placed on the record to allow other interested parties the right to rebut the substance of the communication. The test would be, would a disinterested person, having been apprised of the totality of a decision maker's personal interest in a matter being acted upon, be reasonably justified in thinking that partiality may exist? Decision makers who have personal interest, prejudgment of issues, or partiality are disqualified from the proceedings. So I would ask that the commissioners read through the first slide, and in a moment I will call each of your names, ask you to unmute, and let me know if you if all the answers are no or if some are yes. If you would just raise your real hand when you're done. Okay. Commissioner Brennan?
The answers to all the questions for me is no.
Okay. Commissioner Sanford?
No to all.
Commissioner Soa?
No to all.
Commissioner Dillon?
No to all.
Commissioner Price?
I do have a disclosure I'd like to make. I think it's important to point out that one of the letters we received tonight from the public comments that were submitted to the Development Commission was authored by my wife, Rachel Wright. She serves on the Arts Commission, and we have had no dialogue or ex parte communications about this application. But I was made aware when I saw the letter that she was submitting a letter to the commission tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Ikeda?
No to all.
Commissioner Morgan?
The only thing I can think of that might qualify is I do pay for an annual Brown Bear Car Wash membership.
Okay, so then the second part, please read through this, and then I will ask all of you again. Hands up if you're ready. Commissioner Brennan?
Yes, yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute.
That's all right. Commissioner Sanford?
Yes.
Commissioner Soa?
Yes.
Commissioner Dillon?
Yes.
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Commissioner Ikeda?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Does anyone in attendance wish to challenge the participation of any of the commissioners? I'm just going to quit sharing because I can't see if someone's raising their hand. If any of the attendees wish to challenge any of the commissioners, please raise your virtual hand. I see none. I see no challenges. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Lucy. I believe the next step in our process will be for the staff report. First, we will, I guess before that, the officially open the public hearing. And the first step in the public hearing would be the staff report. So, Lucy, are you providing staff report this evening?
I am not. It would be Associate Planner Valerie Porter, and I'm making her a presenter now. Did that show up, Valerie? Yeah. Thank you.
Valerie, if you're speaking, you're muted. I can't see you, so it's hard to see.
Sorry, not muted, just not used to WebEx.
There you go.
Okay, 1 second. Lucy, can you see my screen?
I can, and it looks just the presentation.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Valerie Porter, and I'm an associate planner here with the city. And tonight we're going to be talking about the Brown Bear project. So the applicant has submitted a site development permit, and that applicant is Barkhausen Consultant Engineers. So to start off, I'm going to briefly go over the project details, some of the scope of work. And so I'm going to ask that all questions be saved to the end of my presentation. So for context, the site is located south of Gilman Boulevard along the east side of First Avenue Northwest. So I know some are wondering why this project is being brought to the Development Commission for review. And the reason is in 2018, the sub-area boundary line was changed and this parcel was relocated from the central Issaquah sub-area to the Issaquah sub-area. So now the project is regulated by the Issaquah Municipal Code. And there is a provision in the code that states that if a parcel abuts a defined major street, so in this case, that would be Gilman Boulevard, the project must go through a level 3 review, which will require a decision from the Development Commission. So although the sub area has changed, the zoning still remains mixed use and is still consistent with the comprehensive plan. So the applicant is proposing to construct a car wash facility on a 0.42 acre lot that is currently vacant. The project is proposing to construct a 540 square foot canopy over 2 pay stations and an automatic tunnel car wash that is slightly over 2,100 square feet, along with 5 parking stalls that could be, and 3 of them would be used for vacuum stations. So the project will also construct frontage improvements, which will consist of installing curb and gutter around the site, extending the existing sidewalk along First Avenue, installing lights and other utilities, and adding remediation equipment to the site. So remediation equipment is needed because the project site and the adjacent right-of-way are currently contaminated with high levels of petroleum and benzene. So a SEPA review was conducted by staff and a revised mitigation determination of non-significance was issued in November of 2021. And this aligns with the conditions of the site development permit. The combined comment and appeal period for the SEPA review has ended and no appeals were received. So the applicant has been taking steps to clean up the site and has proposed a 2-phase cleanup process. The first phase began in summer of 2019, which consisted of removing all above ground structures and any underground storage tanks present on site. And the second phase will consist of installing remediation equipment, and this will occur with the construction of the car wash. So the applicant is working with the Washington State Pollution Liability Insurance Agency, also known as PLIA, and in coordination with city staff to ensure cleanup is in compliance with state environmental regulations. So although the cleanup is part of the scope of work, the method of cleanup is not part of the development purview. It's actually going to be approved by PLIA, but there are some above ground remediation equipment that still needs to comply with city code. So for instance, there is an enclosure located on the north side of the parcel that will house remediation equipment, and it's needed to reduce some of the noise that will be generated by the system. That enclosure will still need to be properly screened. So as you can see from this layout, the space is limited. So how vehicles move in and out of the site is extremely important. So the project is proposing 3 driveways, 2 along the alley and 1 along First Avenue Northwest. So primary access to the site will be gained from the alley. The driveway along First Avenue will be used right over here, will be used as an exit only driveway should any vehicle need to exit prior to entering the car wash. For car washes, the Issaquah Municipal Code requires that the site provide 6 stacking spaces per drive-through. entrance with an additional stall for 1 employee at the maximum shift. So the project is proposing to install 2 payment stations and to service the single drive-through. And so vehicle stacking has been measured from the canopy and allows for queuing beyond the 6 stacking stations. So city street standards does not support 3 driveways, and queuing is a major factor of how vehicles will enter and exit the site. So the applicant will continue to work with staff to determine the best circulation plan and ensure car wash operations do not impact surrounding businesses, and all car wash activities, including parking and queuing, do not overflow onto the adjacent right-of-way. So this may result in the loss of a driveway or driveway widths reducing, and even driveway location shifting. So with the design of this project, a rare situation came about. So first I'm going to explain why a lighting condition was created. So typically lights not on a project site in the right of way usually illuminate the sidewalk and the streets, and they're regulated by the city street standards. And light fixtures located on the project site are regulated by the Issaquah Municipal Code and are not intended to illuminate the streets, but objects or elements, areas on the project site. The applicant requested a street deviation to match existing conditions and extend the existing sidewalk, not to construct the landscape strip, which was approved by the Public Works Department. So because the landscape strip was not installed, which this landscape strips usually house lighting and other utilities, the lighting fixture illuminating the street will need to be placed on the project site. So both the street standards in the Issaquah Municipal Code they don't have standards for alleys, and they don't have provisions for situations like this. So as a solution, the administration is recommending the lighting levels comply with the local street provisions outlined in the city street standards, seeing how the lights will be illuminating the streets and the alley. So this definition is most fitting. So next, I'm going to describe the condition. So on the slide, you'll see the original condition that was in the staff report and then a revised condition. So after the staff report was issued, it was discovered that the mixed use zone, which this parcel is located in, is actually not listed in the outdoor lighting standard section of the Issaquah Municipal Code. So to give the applicant a path forward, staff is recommending the change in red, which will require the site to comply with the commercial, retail, and office lighting standards for all lights not lighting any of the adjacent streets. So the site complies with all district standard requirements, including setbacks and the impervious surface ratio. But there is one SEPA condition that was not completed prior to tonight's meeting, which is to have an environmental indemnification agreement in place prior to site development approval. So if the commission should choose to approve the project, the administration is asking that the notice of decision not be issued until this agreement is in place. So the administration has reviewed the proposal and believes the project is feasible and is recommending approval with conditions outlined in the staff report and the proposed condition just mentioned. So this concludes my presentation. Are there any questions for me before the applicant presents?
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Are there any questions from commissioners on the information provided in the staff report? Type comment or question, I guess, in the chat if you've got a.
Commissioner Morgan has a question.
Commissioner Morgan?
Thank you, Chair Brennan. I'm wondering why I guess the question is, are the design criteria elements supposed to be met for this, and should we be looking through those?
Yes, are you referring to the design criteria checklist?
Correct.
Yes, that was reviewed. The project was reviewed against that, and that should be part of your review.
And then that's up for us to decide if we would agree with that.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Commissioner Sanford has a question.
Commissioner Sanford?
Thank you. Just to clarify on that, we're not talking about the architecture and urban design criteria for central Issaquah, correct? Because this has now been moved outside the central Issaquah area.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So the development design or the architectural design standards for Central Issaquah do not apply here.
Are there any other questions from commissioners?
Commissioner Ikeda has a question.
Thank you. John Ikeda, Commissioner. Question on environmental indemnification. Does that occur after the site's been monitored for contamination? Are there monitoring wells that are being checked, or when does that occur?
The agreement is to basically absolve the city of any responsibility in regards to the contamination. And so the monitoring of the equipment is going to happen after the equipment is installed. And I think the applicant will talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Sort of. So when I guess those finding of no significant impact, that's a result of the testing, and then this is like a remediation mitigation activity after the during construction and as part of the design. I'm kind of rambling here, but I'm just trying to put my thoughts
Understand.
together.
So an environmental review was done because the site is contaminated. And so as part of the review, reports were submitted to staff to kind of understand the extent of contamination and if the contamination was had significant adverse impacts and whether it could be mitigated or not. And so staff reviewed everything and determined that the work that they're proposing could be mitigated, or the impact to the environment could be mitigated, which is why we issued a mitigated determination of non-significance with conditions. And so one of the ways that the applicant is proposing to mitigate or to address the cleanup is to install the remediation equipment. And so it just happens that the type of cleanup method that they're proposing just needs to be constructed in conjunction with the car wash. And so once it's constructed, that's when we'll start to see how well the cleanup occurs. But this will be in conjunction with PLEA and will take several years.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sanford has a question.
Commissioner Sanford, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Richard Sanford. I have a couple of questions about the rest of the staff report, but they're not really related to the presentation that we just saw. Is it appropriate to ask those now, or should I be saving these until after the presentation by the applicant?
I think if you have questions for staff, now is probably a good time to ask those questions.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay, thanks. In the staff report, it says, I think this is in the environmental protection area, to ensure hazardous chemicals do not infiltrate or run off the site. It suggested that a secondary containment be built into the chemical storage area. For additional details and required mitigation measures, please see SEPA determination. And then there is reference to conditions 3 and 4. I assume that that's referring to conditions 3 and 4 at the end of the staff report. And the use of the word suggested, are these measures, whatever they are, required or simply suggested? And if you could walk through those conditions 3 and 4, I would appreciate that.
So these are conditions that were placed in the staff report by the engineer. So I'm going to do my best to try to answer your question. So I believe the second containment is in regards to the contamination of hazardous materials. And so this level of detail of how how the car wash is going to be storing some of their hazardous materials wasn't presented at the time. It is something that staff will review during the construction review process. And so I think the hazardous construction list is required, but because we don't know everything that they're proposing, we just want to kind of give them some guidance.
Okay, yeah, I see in condition 3, all of those 3 sub-items are required. Stormwater from the site must not be infiltrated. All vehicle repair shall be conducted indoors over impermeable pads, and best management practices are required. So it looks to me as those are all requirements, correct, and not just guidance.
Yes, those are requirements. I was referring to the hazardous material construction inventory list. That's required, but there are some, I think, again, once you get into that level of detail of like, the soaps and things like that, we're unsure of, what they're proposing. So that's why
Okay.
we're asking.
Okay, thank you. And if I might, the second question, and I think the applicant will probably address this in more detail. Valerie, you just addressed that a bit in terms of circulation. But I see that the traffic report says that based on the data collected on the Sammamish Brown Bear Car Wash on 228th Avenue over a 3-day period is used as projection criteria for this project. And this project, Brown Bear, the report says, is expected to generate 679 vehicles during an average weekday. I assume that means car trips, and 526 vehicles on a Saturday. First of all, those numbers are pretty concerning to me, but I'll save that. But my question would be, would this intersection still have to remain level of service D then to pass traffic concurrency on this? And I was wondering why Sammamish was chosen as a comparable. And I have in mind the relative densities of those two areas, especially considering that this is right outside central Issaquah, where we're planning to put all or most of our future density. So I guess a couple of things. Must be LOSD, correct? And why was Sammamish chosen as a comparable?
So you're right that the applicant is going to most likely get into a little bit more about this. I do know that the reason why Samish was used was because I think typically you see car washes connected to like a gas station or some other facility, and this one is just primarily going to be a car wash. And so the applicant provided the Sammamish numbers so that we could kind of get an idea of how many trips this would generate. I can say that staff, so the engineers, both the Public Works Department as well as the engineers within the CPD department are still evaluating this and working with staff to ensure that the levels of service are correct and this will not overflow and impact Gilman Boulevard.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dillon.
Thank you. I had one question or clarification on the contamination status, and you mentioned that the finding was that the use would not, I believe, would not cause additional contamination or would mitigate for its impacts. Is there a responsibility for cleanup of the site that's already previously been identified as contaminated?
Can you repeat the question?
I guess I'll try to rephrase it. The site has previously been identified as contaminated and has been sitting empty for a number of years, presumably because of that. And I wonder if you have any information on what the regulations are, if there is responsibility for the new site owner to remediate that contamination of the site, which it seems that the project is managing, has been found that it should manage its own impacts, but it's not clear that it will be improving the pre-existing site condition.
So yes, you're correct. The site has been contaminated for several years. When the property owner took on this site, they also kind of took on that responsibility of cleaning up the site, and so they have been taking steps to do this. So, like I said, it's a two-phase process. So the first phase was removing, all the underground storage tanks and structures on site, and part of that was also kind of cleaning up or removing some of the contaminated soil. And that was necessary because it was helpful to kind of understand the extent of contamination. Sometimes you're not able to, they did request monitoring wells around the site, but sometimes you just kind of need to open up the site and actually understand what's going on. So yes, they are taking necessary steps. And I think there was the second part. Did I address the second part?
Yeah, I think so. So basically, there is a recognition that they do take on that responsibility, and per the staff review, they are following the steps
Yes.
that they're required to.
Yeah.
One other question I noted in the staff report, and maybe this is something that the applicant will address as well, that the stormwater plan was found to not be compliant with standards and requirements for stormwater. Is the path forward that the applicant needs to make changes to their proposal to address that?
Yes, they're required to come into compliance. So during this phase, staff review the project for feasibility, and we believe that the project is feasible, but it cannot, they're definitely not going to be approved as it is now. They will definitely need to come into compliance.
Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan has a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry that if I'm not fully understanding this correctly, but the report talks about, it covers development standards, and then it mentions design standards. But I'm trying to see, when I look at the 1807, the design criteria checklist in Appendix 2, like the design harmony and compatibility section C that talks about scale and durability and design components like colors, modulation, ground level. I guess I didn't see where any of that seemed to be covered in the staff report or discussed. Am I just missing that somewhere?
No, the building design is pretty simple. And so I think it was just maybe not as overtly addressed, but we did consider it as part of the review.
Okay, because I guess I've got I don't want to get into comments, I guess, at this point, but I do have a question about the ground level. One of the requirements is avoid blank walls at the ground level, and there seems to be a fairly large blank wall on the east side of the building, so, which is a concern for me, but, so I guess maybe that comes up in discussion later.
So again, the project is still kind of in the feasibility stage, and so if there's any blank walls or stormwater requirements or signage is another one. If the project doesn't look like it's complying now, before it gets constructed, the applicant will be required to come into compliance.
So that could be a condition we could add to the approval then?
Yes, I believe so. I'm gonna defer to Lucy just because, again, the reason why it's already in code, so we would say that they had to do it regardless. So like I said, I'll defer to Lucy on if that should be a condition.
I think that I think it's appropriate to add conditions if you feel that there are elements of the design criteria checklist that need to be further addressed to ensure that that expectation is clear moving forward.
Great. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Lucy.
Are there any other questions from commissioners to staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed with the applicant's presentation. And if they would provide kind of the names of their team members, and please note who you are before you speak. And if the commissioners would hold your questions until the end of their presentation, they'll have an opportunity to ask the applicant team questions. So if the applicant team would like to proceed.
I just need to know who to make the presenter.
Yeah, Lucy, this is Nick with Barkhausen. If you'll make me the presenter.
Okay, just a moment.
And with me today, I have Lance Odermatt, representative of the property owner, Brown Bear, and Breen Greer as well with Aspect, working on the environmental side of things in terms of remediation. And so, you know, Valerie did a wonderful job on the PowerPoint presentation that she had and kind of doing an overview of the project. So I'll try not to duplicate a lot of the same information, but we'll go into more about the operations of the site and some other details, and we'll talk about architecture as well. So I'll share my screen. I have a short PowerPoint. Okay, and I take it you can see the PowerPoint now?
I just see a blank, something's trying to open, but I see just a blank slide.
Let's see. About
Nick, did you share a screen or an application? Do you know?
it's a PowerPoint. Here,
Right.
I'll try it again here. I just hit
Right,
stop
and
sharing, so
don't pick like a whole screen. Pick the sharing the PowerPoint application. I understand that sometimes is more successful.
let's try this.
There you go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so a little bit about Brown Bear first. Brown Bear began in 1957 with the first car wash located on 15th Avenue in Seattle's Inner Bay neighborhood. And that location, that original location, is still open and successful today. Since then, Brown Bear has now grown to a total of 50 locations throughout the Puget Sound, featuring a combination of automatic conveyor tunnel washes like our project proposes today. And in addition, there's facilities that have touchless washes and then also self-serve bays as well. Brown Bear is committed to the protection of the environment, implementation of their Wash Green program. They utilize eco-friendly detergents that are specifically formulated for this region and that are biodegradable and contain no phosphates. The facilities also utilize a reclaim system that captures pollutants that accumulate from everyday driving, which filters the water and then recycles the water back through the tunnel to be reused again. And so those are some of the features that this car wash that we're proposing today will have. Valerie covered an aerial and kind of where the site is, but the site is bordered by really two roads, including First Avenue Northwest to the west, and then also First Place Northwest as well on the north and east sides. Fairly recent site photo shows the previous use of the gasoline service station removed from the site in 2019 once Brown Bear took ownership of the property, so the site is currently vacant. A little bit about our site plan. The tunnel wash is about 70 feet in length, and it will feature a conveyor belt that will bring vehicles through the wash cycle. The average wash cycle is about 90 seconds. And then we'll have a auto sentry canopy on the south side upon entering the car wash drive-through that allows for contactless transactions. So customers will go to one of two payment kiosks forming two drive-through lanes and make their payment based on the selection of wash that they select, and then they'll proceed through to the car wash. There's some questions about queuing earlier. It's notable to note, in addition to queuing behind the auto sentry, there'll actually be vehicles that are queued between the tunnel entrance and the auto sentry itself. We can have up to 2 vehicles in the wash at once, and then there'll be vehicles between the auto sentry in the entrance, and then capacity for 6 vehicles behind the auto sentry as well. So we can get a total of about 10 vehicles on site at any one time without there being any potential for spillover into the alleyways. Next slide shows our landscape plan. We have a type 2, what the code calls a visual landscape buffer along First Avenue Northwest. It requires a combination of deciduous and evergreen trees. And so we'll have trees placed approximately 25 to 30 feet on center along First Avenue Northwest, in addition to a combination of shrubs and ground cover throughout the perimeter of the site and some of the interior areas as well. Here's our west elevation. This is the elevation that faces the public right-of-way of First Avenue Northwest. Our building will feature a tower element on the exit side of the wash with a sheet metal pitched roof. And then we'll also have, the roof will be delineated with a cornice on all sides of the building. This west elevation facing the right-of-way will also have window glazing, which will offer clear views into the tunnel wash, bringing natural light as well into the tunnel. And then we have stone veneer finish along the foundation. The opposite, I should add to respond to a couple of the questions, the opposite side, the east elevation, faces the interior of the site. The mechanical room is on that side, and so to address the comment about the blank walls, there's not opportunity to put windows there. We do have a service window where the employee office is located on that elevation, but otherwise it's just the brick, just the stone veneer with no window glazing. We can work with staff, for opportunity to add other features like a lattice or something to cover more of the blank wall. But right now we understand that that's the interior side of the site, and it's also the mechanical room. So we featured a lot of our architectural treatment on this west elevation that's facing the public realm. And then I'll show a recent example. This is the new Brown Bear car wash in Poulsbo. That went through design review with the city of Poulsbo and was recently constructed within the last few years. And this is a good visual reference of what this tunnel will look like in terms of the glazing inside the tunnel, some of the cornice treatment along the roof, the tower, and the stone veneer. So I wanted to provide that as well. But we feel the proposed Brown Bear car wash will really enhance the commercial character of the mixed-use district. Brown Bear is a successful business in the Puget Sound that's local and has facilities that are known to be clean and well maintained. Brown Bear provides exceptional service that will positively impact the citizens of the community and the city of Issaquah. And we're happy to answer any questions that you may have, and thank you for your time and consideration tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Wecker. Are there any questions from the commissioners to the applicant or the applicant team? Commissioner Sanford.
Thank you, Chair Brennan. This is Richard Sanford. I'd like to get back to the circulation issue. I believe it's intended that the entrances are supposed to be off First Place, and I think I saw that in the earlier presentation. However, First Avenue is there also. How do we guarantee that vehicles entering don't take First Avenue and they take First Place? I guess overall, what I'd like to see is more of the idea of the circulation involving Gilman Boulevard and the surrounding streets. How do we expect traffic to enter that location, exit from it? And secondary concern, it looked like on the diagram, cars coming directly out of the car wash, maybe heading directly into incoming cars in a two-way entrance there. It looked like it was two-way on that one entrance on First Place. Can you walk through how this is supposed to work?
Yeah, so first, the driveway that's shown on First Avenue Northwest, that's not a driveway that we plan to keep in operation. It's more of an escape for vehicles that are between that auto century and the wash and need to leave, whether it's for safety purposes or someone's transaction not going through, or simply changing their mind and needing to leave. And so an attendant on site would need to open up that driveway for them to leave. And so our access is proposed from the alleys on the north and east sides of the site only. And then we're working with staff on whether we can have that driveway on First Place Northwest, because the staff has expressed some concern with the potential for queuing to block that driveway and wanting to have one consolidated point of access into the site. You know, the queuing that we tend to see on site is really around 4 vehicles. Our auto century can handle 6 just behind the auto century, not even counting the cars that are between the auto century and the car wash entrance. So we don't anticipate spillover. We also have a tenant on site that's able to cone off that First Place Northwest driveway on the south side as needed if queuing does expand past that driveway, which would lead to a more consolidated point on First Place Northwest during, you know, peak business. But the alleyway is where our primary access is in terms of people accessing how people are getting to the site. You know, of course, it'd be from Gilman and First Avenue. There was a comment earlier about kind of piggyback on the comment earlier about the traffic count that's in the traffic study. That doesn't consider pass-by traffic. Car washes for IT manual are mainly pass-by traffic. Over 50% of the traffic generated for car washes are from pass-by. It's people on their way home from work to home, from home to work, or home to, you know, wherever they're going on the weekend. It's not necessarily a destination where someone leaves home, goes to the car wash, and then drives back home. It's, you know, we locate these car washes in convenient locations that can take advantage of the pass-by traffic that's already there. So, of course, Gilman is going to be the main traffic generator where we're drawing traffic from, but also Front Street, they can access the site as well via Northwest College Street on the south side.
Okay, just to make sure we're talking apples and apples here. Your use of the term alley is that First Place Northwest, correct?
The city engineering department has labeled both the east and north side as classified as alleyways.
Okay, and First Avenue Northwest is the one where cars would exit in an emergency situation or to leave before entering the wash, right?
Yeah, for clarification, First Avenue Northwest is where we have the escape driveway exit. That would only be utilized in urgent situations where someone needed to leave the site after going through the auto century.
Okay, so cars would head east, I guess, on Gilman and turn into this location. And then they're supposed to be going on to First Place Northwest, correct? Or the alley. They are not supposed to be continuing straight on First Avenue Northwest. Is that correct?
That's a good point. Yes, they would head, so off of Gilman, they would head on, I guess they'd be taking a right and then a left on First Place into the alley. So they'd be.
So I was
on
wondering if
the
there's
side,
signage or
traffic sign.
something planned so that we ensure that they're directed into the alley and they're not rolling down First Place and coming around the back of the wash. How do people orient there?
We can definitely, in our sign package, include directional signage to denote where that entrance is so that it minimizes traffic utilizing going all the way south on First Avenue Northwest and then going on Holly and doing a complete, loop
Okay,
through.
and you say that most
To be good to go.
vehicles entering car washes are passed by traffic, so that wouldn't that mean that most of the activity we're having here is during peak traffic times, like the late peak in the day?
Yeah. Typically, during weekdays, it's before work and after work. It's pretty consistent with traffic patterns during weekdays. And weekends, it's a little bit more of a a mix.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. That's all on that for now.
Commissioner Price, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. This is Commissioner Price. We received a number of letters tonight from members of the Arts Commission, and I don't know if the applicant was able to see those or read those. The commission saw those, and most of those letters pointed out that this particular site is in the Creative District, and I don't know if you knew you were in the Creative District. I certainly didn't know. I don't know if any of the commissioners knew, but it stretches all the way down Front Street in Old Town, and then turns the corner and returns up Gilman for a stretch. And as a result, this is a gateway site. It's a gateway site also to Old Town. So I think it's a very important site in that regard. And so I guess I'm wondering what additional measures could be taken now that you're potentially aware of the fact that this site is in the Creative District. And two things come to mind right away, and maybe you've thought about this, but I don't see the bears. Where are the bears? What says Creative District like really driving it home with some bronze bears? So I just didn't see them on the landscape plan. So I'm curious if those are in play, and could you really, I don't know, to a larger degree, build that up or make that more significant? I think secondly, to echo Commissioner Morgan's comment about the blank wall, you had addressed it's an interior wall to the site, but it is the wall that faces Gilman, right? So it's really the face of the building to the community. And is there the potential there to turn this into something special? Could it be a public commission artwork? Could it be a mural? Could it be something beyond just a trellis, something way beyond the blank wall? So I would just love to hear your thoughts on some of that.
Absolutely. I didn't know it was in the arts overlay or district, but I did receive the public comments received from Valerie and forwarded to me like yesterday afternoon and this morning as well. There's another comment that came in on the same lines, and so it's understandable. We definitely want to add the bear statues to the site. And we'll work with staff on the best location. There's a couple locations that we could propose, including the landscape island that bounds the kind of the ADA stall, close to the ADA stall in the entrance of the site. That would be most visible to Gilman. Or we could do it at the corner of First Place Northwest and First Avenue Northwest as well, which would be the northwest corner of the site. Where we currently show landscape, but we definitely want to look for opportunity to add bear statues that you would see at other brown bear locations throughout the area, and so we can work with Valerie and Lucy and the Arts Division to come up with something as part of our sign package to be approved for the site.
Are there any other questions for the applicant team from the commission? Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Chair Brennan. Is it possible, Mr. Wecker, to pull up the site, preliminary site plan?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I should have it up.
That's great. Thank you. One of the questions I have, the rectangular structure at the, what would be the north end there, that's the AV SVE enclosure, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's, and the only thing I saw was maybe on the, one of the street signs kind of looked like maybe it's 4 or 5 feet tall or something like that. And I think in the report it talked about screening that, but I didn't see much else about what that structure looks like.
Yeah, it's similar aesthetically to like a city approved trash enclosure where it could be CMU on 3 of the sides and have some gate access to be able to access the equipment. We still need to get the approval from POIA and generate what those elevations are going to look like and work with planning department staff to make sure it's screened appropriately. We're using the right materials. We'll obviously have the landscape buffer along the street of First Avenue Northwest, but we're able to do some additional enhanced screening as well. It's a mutual interest of Brown Bear and City of Issaquah and our office to make sure it's not an eyesore or distract from the site. So minimizing that as much as possible is in all of our interests and something we'll be doing upon approval. That aspect is working through with POIA and putting together a screening plan with Valerie in the planning department.
And is that an open air type structure or is it covered?
I believe they're typically covered. Breen with Aspect may be able to answer that better than I can.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So the preliminary configuration for a system like this, especially so close to the property line, is that it would be enclosed in some sort of noise enclosure, and we would rate the basically the thickness and the material of the noise enclosure by the size of the blower. But you can put any sort of exterior around that that's approved by the city, like whatever would be commonly around a dumpster enclosure would be applicable to this as an exterior.
So are there fans in there that are like blowing 24/7?
Generally, yes. We have built some that run only like 8 to 6 or something like that, but usually we rate them such that they meet the city noise ordinances for a 24-hour operation.
Okay, so I take it, would that mean that it's an open air structure on the top so the air can be blown out?
There will be venting, yes, in the soundproofing enclosure. Yeah.
Okay, but you couldn't put something on top like, say, a bear sculpture.
Theoretically, if it could fit with the vent, you could fit a bear sculpture up there also. Yes.
Okay. I'm just thinking that's a very prominent location and maybe 2 birds with 1 stone. But the other question was the arrangement of it parallel to First Place Northwest. Is there a reason that I guess it could not be turned 45 degrees to be parallel to First Avenue Northwest? Are there any setback issues or? And the reason I'm asking that is it's also raising the question, is Commissioner, I'm trying to remember, was it Kevin? Sanford had mentioned that the access issue to me is I have the real problem thinking about the cars that are entering at an angle from First Place Northwest into the site. And if you could pull up the site plan again, Nick, the cars pulling in from the First Place Northwest and the cars pulling out of the tunnel at almost the same angle, and they're all, and I just, it seems real problematic to me. And I even wondered, could you have the tunnel, if you turned the enclosure 45 degrees to be north-south, could the cars come out of the tunnel, have their own exit to First Place Northwest, and then some distance to the southeast, have the entrance for cars from First Place Northwest into the queue?
To create, yeah, some more sight distance into the driveway. The only thing, and we have to maintain a 13-foot setback plus the 10-foot landscape buffer along First Avenue Northwest is my understanding, and so I think a lot of that dictated the location of that enclosure. The height of it, you know, minimizing the height of it will help as well for traffic coming into from First Place Northwest. But we can probably shift it at an angle to help increase sight distance as well, so that it's not right up against First Place Northwest.
And can
traffic,
could it be two
conflict.
separate driveways there? An exit driveway closer to the tunnel exit, and then an entrance driveway further to the southeast?
Yeah, that's kind of how we anticipate a lot of the traffic going through this driveway as well, straight into the auto century. There was some concern we may not get both of those driveways, and so then this would be, you know, we have this shown extra wide in case that we need to delineate this to show exit and entrance traffic to help minimize that conflict. But it's something we'll look at in terms of even providing directional signage to denote that this is the main entrance to the car wash, plus adding striping to delineate, you know, the pathway for people exiting versus entering.
Because I would think if there's one driveway, and maybe it's just me, but if there's one driveway and I'm entering from First Place Northwest, I'll enter, I think, to the right side of it. I won't go to the left. I'll try to go to the right side of it. I know when I was in England, I learned to drive on the left side of the road on vacation, but the one thing I couldn't get right was going in and out of parking lots. I'd still go in on the right side of the parking lot, and that was wrong. And so I just get concerned, those people coming in and they'll think I'm turning into a driveway. I turn on the right side of it, not the left, unless they were separated.
Yeah, and I think striping will make a big difference to delineate where that entrance lane is at. Honestly, on that, but also keeping this driveway open will help as well, because it provides more direct access to the entrance. A lot of our sites have a driveway that's primary access or primary entrance, and one that's primary exit. So we try to do that here, but knowing that most people are going to be heading, you know, in this direction along First Place Northwest, passing this driveway first, and so we have created some additional width there. And with some striping, that will hopefully be able to delineate between the entrance and cars exiting to minimize conflicts as much as possible.
Okay, and I would also want to echo Commissioner Price's comments about both the bears and then the idea for some kind of artwork murals along that blank wall is one way to address it. A perfect opportunity to give some artists a blank canvas to work with in the creative district and not have to change the building. So, I guess in my mind that blank wall is going to be something that I think we would need to condition. And in my mind, the condition could be either to do something to the wall or actually add art to it, which I think could be much more fun, because I do agree that a lot of people from Gilman will be looking at that wall. So thank you.
Okay, understood.
Commissioner Ikeda.
Thank you, Commissioner Brennan. Just a couple of questions this on the environmental side of this. I think the SVE, soil vapor extraction, is that essentially pressurizing the subgrade?
Yeah, I'm off mute. I can answer this one unless you want to, Nick.
Oh, no, go for it, please.
Sure. So, soil vapor extraction is on its own, it's just extraction. So, it's actually inducing a vacuum in the subsurface. When combined with air sparging, you're actually injecting air from the atmosphere down simultaneously with inducing a vacuum. So it's both pressure and vacuum. So, yeah, you had it pretty right.
So the other question is do you monitor the exhaust from it for hydrocarbons?
Yep. So all of the systems that I currently operate, we visit monthly, and we keep running annual emissions spreadsheets to track to make sure that we're meeting local air standards.
You answered my next question. So the follow-up question to that is, if you are busting the standard, what happens then?
Yep, then we can design and implement a couple different kinds of effluent cleaning systems. There's some that are more physical, like a granular activated carbon filter, or if emissions were really high, we could implement something like a catalytic oxidizer. That's not expected here, not expected to be needed based on the low levels of residual contamination after the excavation that we completed in 2019, but there are technologies available should they prove necessary.
Last question, did you test for, I think it's called PFAS or PFOS?
No, those are not contaminants of concern at this site.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Price has a question.
Thank you, Chair Brennan. This is Kevin Price speaking again. I don't want to beat up the circulation issue, but I also want to hear how you envision the vacuuming process playing into the sequence. Am I seeing 3 of them? Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
And then so 2 are along First Place Northwest.
Yes.
And then 1 is over at the parking stalls towards the building. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I guess I have 2 questions based on that, so I'll just ask them both at the same time, and maybe you can address them at the same time. One is just how does that work into the queuing sequence? It seems like it's adding another layer of congestion. And are we just relying on, you know, the goodwill of people to let somebody in once they're done vacuuming their car? And I can imagine doors open, you know, fast food bags. I can imagine a lot of activity occurring around that. And have we adequately addressed all that activity? And the second part is, how are we screening those vacuum units from the street? I don't see them illustrated on the renderings with the street view with the trees. I just don't see them sort of incorporated into that rendering. So is there some level of screening that's to occur as well?
Yeah, sure. To answer your first question, so they're not like a lot of car washes. The vacuums are free to use upon exiting the wash, but you still have to pay to use the vacuums. They're the coin operated traditional vacuums. They don't see a whole lot of volume at our other sites. We have incorporated an extra wide drive aisle that's wider than the minimum for city code for two-way traffic, to be able to incorporate maneuvering space to get into those 2 parallel stalls with the vacuums. And then there's, you know, an even wider drive aisle behind the 9-foot wide stall in front of the building as well, to allow for backup space for people to get in and out. People that do use it, you know, it's typically after the wash. But again, we only have 3 here, and we typically are adding less and less because there's not a whole lot of volume that is using the vacuum pumps at the Brown Bear facilities. Oh, and then your second part question on the screening, we don't currently have any screen aside from ground cover between the vacuum and the alleyway. We do have a combination of shrubs and ground cover between each. But there's no screening requirement along the alleyway for those vacuum stations.
Okay, can I just add a follow-up? This is more just comment. I think something should be considered on some level. You know, I think we call this an alleyway. Yes, it's designated as an alleyway, but it's the face of this facility to the community. It's not the back of the building. And you know, I know how it's arranged in the labels, but it's really the front of the building. So I think something needs to be done there. Consideration given to it, especially when the renderings are a little disingenuous in that regard. I just don't see them. Maybe they're there, but I just don't feel like that's how it's going to look.
Okay. Yeah, no, understood. We will work to dress up that south to be the east elevation of the building that faces Gilman from a distance. You know, we know there's a mechanical room there, but there's other things we can do. It's been discussed to help dress up that building in addition to the stone veneer.
Commissioner Morgan, you have a question?
Sorry, one more. I saw a clock on the Paulsbo Tower. Can we get a clock in Issaquah Tower?
Yeah, Lance, I look like you were about to say something too. Did you want to answer that one? Add anything I may have missed?
Yeah, I think a clock would look good there. I'd be all in favor of it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from commissioners to the applicant team? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to open the meeting for public comment. Note that we've also received 3 written comments via email after the staff report was in the project packet was published. So if you are interested in speaking during the public hearing this evening, if you're on a computer, please raise your virtual hand. And if you're on the phone, you can press *3 to raise your hand. When it's your turn, you'll be moved in as a panelist. And once you're moved up, you then can unmute your phone or your microphone and then turn on your video. Please state your name and then proceed to make any comments or ask any questions you might have. Please mute your microphone when you're done giving your comments. And before we get started, I'm just going to ask that people keep their comments and questions to less than 5 minutes. It'll allow everyone who wishes to speak a chance to talk. We also may have attendees joining us by phone, so please introduce yourself each time before speaking. Are there any comments from the public? And if so, please enter them in the chat. So Lucy, if you have anybody from the public that would like to speak tonight, please move them up to panelists.
This time I don't see anyone's hand raised. There are 1 or 2 people whose names I don't recognize. If you want to speak and you're having trouble figuring out how to raise your virtual hand, send me a chat. I believe you can chat with the host, which is me. I don't see anyone asking to comment.
Great, thank you.
Wait. Okay, someone just did. Rachel Wright would like to comment. I cannot elevate her as a panelist, but I can unmute her so that she can comment. Rachel, you have been unmuted, and please give us your comments.
Great. I first wanted to thank the Commission for taking the time to read the letter from me and from other members of the Arts Commission, considering the Creative District. We really appreciate you taking the time. And I'm just hoping that going forward, the Commission can help to bring some of these issues to the Creative District so that we can help to make sure that we have development that both fits the design standards, but also helps in with meeting the objectives of trying to create a much more pedestrian friendly, much more accessible, walkable, and friendly arts district. So I'm curious, just if with the information I gave you in the letter, I'm wondering if can be any discussion about the variance and why we can't have more planters and bike space around this specific development.
So we can handle that comment or carry that question forward as part of the commission's discussion. If there are additional comments that you would like to make or questions you'd like to have asked, please continue your comment. If not, we can move to the next speaker if there is one.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Lucy, do we have anybody else who has raised their hand? Seeing
I
none?
do. I've not received a chat or see a hand raised from anyone else.
Great. So want to give an opportunity to, do the commissioners have any additional questions for the applicant before we close the public hearing?
Mr. Chair, we should give opportunity if there's any opportunity for desire for rebuttal before we close the public.
Thanks for reminding me. First of all, to the applicant, do you have any rebuttal or response to the question from the speaker, Ms. Wright?
No, I don't believe that's in our purview to have an answer to that question.
Also want to give the opportunity to staff to provide rebuttal response.
I'd like to briefly just mention that part of so the parcel was located within the central Issaquah sub area, and typically streets are reviewed by the Development Commission when projects are located in the central Issaquah. So because the sub area boundary changed and it placed this project or this parcel outside of the central Issaquah area, this now means that all roadway deviations and standards should comply with the street standards. And in the street standards, any deviations are approved by the Public Works Department. So they did review all considerations, and they were incorporated into the design, which is why we are bringing this before the Development Commission today.
Can I just ask a quick follow-up to that? So there was a variation, and that variation, as you mentioned, would be decided by Public Works or by the Public Works Director. And that process is still under consideration, or has that decision been made?
A decision has been made. It was made a couple years ago.
So the reduction of the sidewalk width and the modification to landscaping was approved for this?
Correct.
So are there any other questions for from the commission to the applicant? Lucy, you have a question?
I just, Valerie and I have been chatting, and I just want to make the point that the brown bear sculpture would be considered a sign, and so would need to be considered as part of the sign package, not as a separate art element. So I say that for the commissioners, just so you're aware.
Great, thanks for that clarification. Are there any other questions for the applicant from the commission this evening? And I'm not seeing any. So as there are none, the commissioners, do any of the commissioners object to closing the public hearing? I see no objection, so the public hearing is closed. Once it's closed, just as a reminder, since this is a quasi-judicial action or matter, No additional testimony may be taken, and commissioners are now limited to the questions to staff only. And we can deliberate, and then if we are ready to vote, that's what we can do this evening. So again, the public hearing, as there were no objections, is now closed. So it is now our opportunity as the commission to deliberate, and when ready, can certainly make a motion here to act on this particular application. So are there any comments, deliberation, points that commissioners would like to make at this point? Commissioner Morgan.
I guess I'm curious to hear what some of the other commissioners' thoughts are on the east wall. Commissioner Price has discussed it, but to me, it seems clear that that we do have a long blank wall that would be visible from Gilman. And I feel like there would need to be a condition, and thinking that a condition could be either to make changes to the wall or to add artwork, and working with the Arts Commission in the city. I'm curious what other commission members might think about that.
Commissioner Price, you also have a question to staff. So why don't we pause here since Commissioner Morgan was asking for additional thoughts from commissioners. Any commissioners would like to add your thoughts to Commissioner Morgan's comment? Commissioner Dillon.
I like the idea of artwork along the wall, and that seems like something that could probably be incorporated into the design without affecting function. It's consistent with some of the artwork that's being done on city property, decorating utility boxes, larger scale than that, of course, but kind of tying it in with some of the other artistic expressions around the city.
Commissioner Price, did you want to add to this?
Yeah, I would just agree. I would love to see it be a condition to work with the Arts Commission or whoever the appropriate party is, to just work with the community and have something done there that really demonstrates some level of wanting to put a good face towards this street that is a super critical corner. It's as I mentioned before, a gateway. And then I would go one step further, is going back to the vacuum machines, and Patty had mentioned art wraps. They wrap utility boxes in art wraps. Now that's working directly with the utility city partnership, but I think it's been a great thing to see these art wraps popping up all over the community. So could we also see something of that nature done to these vacuum machines, even to the point of, could they build their own little enclosure around it if they didn't want to attach the art directly to the machine, but then do the art wrap on that, or erect some sort of, even wrought iron decorative art, something better than the back of a vacuum cleaner. So that's what I would like to see.
Any other commissioners? And then I'll jump back up to Commissioner Price had a question, and I believe Commissioner Sanford as well. So I'll throw my 2 cents in here on the question about the blank wall. I would agree. I mean, we've had this situation on other projects that we have reviewed over the years, and we have seen different either architectural treatments, some forms that sometimes breaking the wall up with additional glazing, etc. In this particular instance, I would agree. It's a very visible kind of gateway coming down Gilman Boulevard, and it is the most probably visible elevation of the project from a community standpoint. So the idea of architectural or interesting art treatment that would make sense here would be, I think, a good addition. The blank wall, as it's shown in the elevations, I don't believe meets the standard, and certainly something needs to be done to address that. But this really is an opportunity, as Commissioner Price mentioned, to maybe do something that is unique. I understand Brown Bear has a certain image that they want for their facilities. But again, it's trying to find a balance between what you're trying to accomplish and what the community is trying to accomplish in this particular location. So certainly would like to see that. As far as referring to the Arts Commission, and certainly they could provide feedback. Obviously, this is a decision of the Development Commission, but certainly to get thoughts and ideas, the Arts Commission and other community members and or staff can provide some additional feedback on that as well, and what might make sense. Any other comments on the wall, Lucy?
I just am going to put something in the chat that is the excerpt from the design checklist for your reference. And I just wanted you to know why that was showing up.
Okay, it's not there. Oh, there it is. Thank you. So real quick for the public that can't see it, design components, ground level, avoid blank walls at the ground level, utilize windows, trellises, wall articulation, arcades, and changes in materials or other features is the expectation, or the design expectation, to minimize the impact of potentially large blank walls. So back up to the question. So Commissioner Price had a question.
Thank you, Chair Brennan. It's very well put. You articulated it much better than I, so I appreciate your commentary on the blank wall issue. It was more about the sign, that the bears would fall under the sign code. And, you know, just maybe you can't comment on this right now. Is there anything off the top of your head that would not allow the bears in the sign code? Would they meet code on some level?
So, like Lucy mentioned, we have been talking about this, whether or not that would work. And because the project is Brown Bear, and adding a big or a large bear sculpture, that would be considered as advertising. Now, if they wanted to, you know, place a large elephant, that would not be considered advertising. And Lucy just placed the definition of sign in the chat for you guys' review. So that's part of the reason why we would consider it a sign.
Thank you. I'm not going to read this one, but commission members can see it, and it is a code reference, so it is provided in the city code.
1811, if any members of the public who can't see the chat are interested. It's the definition of sign from 1811.
I believe Commissioner Sanford had a comment.
Thank you, Chair Brandon. This is Richard Sanford. Maybe I'm the only one concerned about the number of trips that this is adding, but it's been vetted. I assume that LOSD is still being met by this project at that intersection. I hope that we're taking into account that Central Issaquah is the area that we've designated to add the most density in the future. So I hope that the assessment and evaluation for that level of service has included some of our future plans there. At least I would like to see a condition added regarding circulation in the facility, both approach the facility and within, but I'll leave it at that. And I'd be interested to hear if any other commissioners have concerns about the volume of traffic that this is adding in the area.
Any other commissioners like to, Commissioner, looks like Commissioner Morgan.
Yeah, I would agree about, I'm not so sure about volume in general spilling out, but more about volume and circulation within the facility itself. And if I can sneak in quickly, a question to Lucy or Valerie. So the bear that's at the Brown Bear Car Wash on Southeast 56 was considered a sign and approved as such?
There was a significant debate at the time that was installed. I would just point out we're under a new sign code, and I believe that the definition of sign has changed. So whether that one,
Okay.
how that one would rate under the current sign code, I don't know. But well, I shouldn't say that. It was evaluated under a different code. And
Okay.
based on this code, I think with the intent is that nonverbal symbols are as much signs as words.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dillon, a comment.
Yes, thanks. Responding to Commissioner Sanford's comment about traffic, that is a difficult spot. It's near the intersection of Gilman and Front Street, which is very busy a lot of the time, and so it would add, I assume, a fair amount of traffic potentially along Rainier or Northwest Holly Street for people looking for alternate options to get there. So I only had a chance to skim the traffic assessment, but I guess I would like to echo Commissioner Sanford's contention that I hope that was reviewed and considered, and that the assumptions were validated based on city experience.
Are there any other comments or questions to staff from the commission? So if we're comfortable advancing this to a decision this evening, we would need a motion. Certainly we can add additional conditions to the motion, to the conditions that are already included in the staff report. Commissioner Price would like to make a motion. Commissioner Price, you're muted.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to approve.
You need to try again. We can't, I can't hear you. I think we lost Commissioner Price. Would somebody else like to introduce a motion? Commissioner Morgan.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Development Commission approve the site development permit for Brown Bear Car Wash, file number SDP 19-00003, as described and evaluated in the staff report dated January 26, 2022, with attachments 1 through 24, subject to the conditions therein and as amended tonight, and contingent upon the applicant recording the environmental indemnification agreement with King County. The environmental indemnification agreement must be recorded no later than March 2, 2022, unless an extension has been granted by the city or the application will be denied.
Is there a second to the motion by Commissioner Morgan? You can just speak up. You can unmute and speak up if you want.
Second.
So I heard a second. I don't know who said that.
Richard Soa, second.
Thank you, Richard. Commissioner Soas seconded the motion. Is there additional discussion on the motion? Commissioner Sanford.
I would like to suggest a condition. I don't know if this is the point of order in which to do it.
So to suggest a condition, you would make an amendment to the main motion that would add a condition. Lucy, it might be helpful just for us to track it. If you could, and I know this is a lot to ask, but if it's possible to kind of capture the motion in either on the screen or on your screen, so that we can keep track of any amendments.
If you'll give me just one moment, I think I'm trying to, do you see the motion sheet being shared?
We see, yes, we see the motion sheet. It's very small though. It's hard for us to read, at least for me.
All right, let me make it much bigger. So based on a request about blank walls, we began to draft something. This is just proposed. I'm putting it in italics and red, so you know this is not something that you all have proposed, but simply.
So I will back to Commissioner Sanford. If you want to amend the main motion to add a condition, feel free to do that.
Okay, thank you, Chair. It regards circulation into and internal to the facility. So I have some candidate language that could be amended in itself, but the applicant must prepare a traffic circulation plan that addresses entry to the site from Gilman Boulevard by using First Place Northwest, as well as circulation within the site to prevent wrong-way traffic. The plan must include all anticipated traffic striping and signage.
And you're offering that as a motion, as an amendment to the main motion?
That's correct.
Is there a second? You just,
Second.
okay, I heard a second. I don't know, again, who seconded?
Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. So we have a motion to amend with.
Commissioner Sanford be willing to repeat the condition?
Sure, Lucy, I could mail it to you if you want as well, or I could just go through it a little slowly.
Or drop it in the chat.
Okay,
Although
sure.
I think when I'm sharing my screen, it's hard for me to get in there.
Better to do the chat, sure.
Lucy, can you see the motion in the chat?
Yes.
Great. So again, this is an amendment to the main motion. Are there any questions or comments regarding the amendment? I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand to comment. So with that, I will vote on the amendment to the main motion, the amendment offered by Commissioner Sanford. All in favor, say aye. I guess, unfortunately, I think we're gonna have to do this by roll call. Is that right, Lucy?
That seems like the best way to do it. Let me just pull up the commission list. So for a roll call vote, Commissioner Brennan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanford,
Yes.
Commissioner Soa,
Yes.
Commissioner Dillon,
Yes.
Commissioner Price,
Yeah.
Commissioner Ikeda,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
So the motion passes unanimously. Thanks for that. Is there any other commission member that would like to offer an amendment? Commissioner Morgan.
Yes, and Lucy, I added this to the text to the chat box. The motion would be to add a condition that the applicant shall work with staff to make changes to the east building wall to meet the design criteria checklist requirement to avoid blank walls, including the possibility of adding artwork.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Patty Dillon.
Motion seconded by Commissioner Dillon. Any questions or comments about the motion?
Lucy, does that fit the verbiage requirements?
Yes. Thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
I'm seeing no questions or comments regarding the motion. So we will move to vote. So Lucy, I guess we'll do roll call again.
Yes, on the Second Amendment to add a new condition regarding blank walls, Commissioner Brennan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanford,
Yes.
Commissioner Soa,
Yes.
Commissioner Dillon,
Yes.
Commissioner Price,
Yes.
Commissioner Ikeda,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
Thank you. That amendment also passes unanimously. Are there any other amendments to the main motion? Are there any other amendments to the main motion? I'm seeing none. So we are back to the main motion as amended. Is there any other discussion on the main motion as amended? I'm seeing none. Oh, excuse me, Commissioner Dillon.
I guess actually going back to what I asked staff at the beginning about stormwater, my understanding is that those standards would have to be met regardless of us putting any condition on the acceptance. Is that true?
That is correct.
Okay, then I'm fine as is.
And there's also conditions in the staff report, so it's a twofer.
It's a twofer. Okay, so I think we have that one covered. Good question. Are there any other comments or questions to the main motion as amended? I'm seeing none, so we will move to vote. Lucy, roll call.
Roll call on the amendment to approve the permit with the conditions and the amendments as proposed this evening. Commissioner Brennan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanford,
Yes.
Commissioner Soa,
Yes.
Commissioner Dillon,
Yes.
Commissioner Price,
Yes.
Commissioner Ikeda,
Yes.
Commissioner.
Yeah.
Thank you. The motion passes. So the commission's work on this is complete on this quasi-judicial matter. We have approved the permit with conditions. Commissioner Morgan.
Yes, I think I might need to do another motion to prepare findings. Mr. Chair, I move that the Development Commission direct the Community Planning and Development Department to prepare findings of fact and conclusions for review and approval by the Development Commission Chairman, affirming the Development Commission's decision to approve the Brown Bear Car Wash Project, file number SDP 19-00003, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report dated January 26, 2022, with attachments 1 through 24, and as amended tonight, contingent upon the applicant's timely recording of the required environmental indemnification agreement.
Is there a second?
Second, Richard Sanford.
Seconded by Commissioner Sanford. Lucy, we'll have to do the roll call again. One more time.
Let's do it in my sleep. Commissioner Brennan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanford,
Yes.
Commissioner Soa,
Yes.
Commissioner Dillon,
Yes.
Commissioner Price,
Yes.
Commissioner Ikeda,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Morgan, for making sure we didn't miss any of our approval process steps there. So with that, that does conclude the commission's actions, quasi-judicial actions on this permit application approved with conditions. So I would like to thank the applicant team and staff. Great presentations tonight, lots of questions. Appreciated your answers. I think the applicant team received some good feedback tonight. Clearly the commission wants to see high quality development and have some suggestions and some additional requirements that hopefully will help us accomplish that. So again, thank you for your great work and your continued cooperation making Issaquah a great city. So Lucy, I think we have, do we have any other business to cover tonight or updates?
So I will just point out that we're still in the busy season. So next week is a joint PPC meeting, a DC PPC meeting. It's the last of the gap analyses and update memos for Title 18 on parking and circulation. Then we have issued our first drafts on 2 of the natural environment topics. One is some amendments to the Shoreline Master Program and a draft of the outdoor lighting code. So those are available, I believe, on PPC's website. And there'll be an open house next week to answer the public's questions. And the other thing, just as a sort of global potential interest, is that Director Dhaliwal will be meeting monthly with the council, providing updates on Title 18 as we complete our discussion draft and deliberations with them. So there'll be opportunities for updates on that. And we expect to see you in March for the Providence Heights site development permit and master site plan. The hearing notice hasn't been issued yet, but it will be soon. And we also anticipate, because it's going to be a sizable packet, we're going to give you around 2 weeks to review those materials.
Thanks, we appreciate that extra time. I know we've been anticipating that one for a while. So is there any additional business for the commission this evening?
Not that I'm aware of.
Great. So seeing none, then we will adjourn the meeting. It is at 8:56. Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, I'm done.
Where's my champagne?
Yeah.
You did all the work.
Thank you.